Welcome to the Sober Minded Show. In this video, we'll be going over some recent things that have happened in the US, two tragic events, and then one kind of discussion that has been going on within the Conservative Party and among the MAGA voter base, which I am a part of. So I want to share my thoughts on what's been going on there. And while I'm talking about these things, I will be playing this racing game called Assetto Corsa. It's been around for a while, and if you like racing games, I highly recommend it if you don't already know about it. But it's just something that I can do while I talk, something you can watch while you're listening. And on Breitbart, it's where I get my news from. You can see the list of articles that have been written about this particular subject concerning the H-1B visas and Elon Musk's sort of lashing out at people that disagree with him. He's been lashing out against people on Twitter and banning them, removing their blue check marks. So, and Musk even said it himself, this is something that he's really passionate about. He's passionate about having immigrants that have a high education, that are working in the tech industry and other industries that require a high level of education, in particular with education with technology. And Musk is in favor of bringing these people over to work in America. And it was a visa that Elon Musk himself actually benefited from, because I believe it's the reason why he came to America to do business in America was for that reason. It's one of the things that helped him, that allowed him to come over here. And so that's kind of interesting. That I guess that's why he's so kind of passionate about this particular subject. And so the main issue has been with Musk and the people who are on his side, who are in favor of these visas. And then the other side, within the same Conservative Party, within the same MAGA party, there's a lot of people who are disagreeing with him. And it seems like the main point of contention is Musk is in favor, or Musk stated that currently Americans are too lazy to work these kinds of jobs that need these higher education. And so it is necessary to bring immigrants over and to fill in that gap. And then the other side took offense at this. We're not lazy Americans. We're able to work. And the reason why Americans are quote unquote lazy, or because they're not really motivated to work, which is because their jobs are being taken by immigrants already. And so it seems the main point of contention is this idea that America needs help from foreign countries. And this all comes from the people who are, make America great again, which I agree with. Same thing, the slogan, America first. We need to put America first before all other countries. And so this kind of goes along with that, because these people don't want help from other countries because they want to put themselves first rather than, other people helping them. They want to help themselves first before other people help them. So to me, that's what it seems like the main topic of contention is. So it seems like the actual issue here is not about the labor force, but rather it's about it's really about the production, the rate of production coming from America. That the economy is doing bad and that's the production in America, the labor force is doing bad because it's flooded with too many immigrants. So that's what one side sees as the problem. The other side, which would be Musk's side, views that there is a problem, but the way to solve it is with more immigration. But the issue is a lot more complicated than that. I think people who are falling into this argument, this back and forth argument, the arguments and counter arguments, people falling into that sort of game are really missing the big picture here, which is that the reason why America is in the state that it's in is not really because of immigration. That does play a role on some scale, but really at the heart of the issue is that there's too many cooks in the kitchen. There's too many people, too many groups of people within the government, the bureaucracy. The converged interests of these groups is tampering with the well-being of America. And I think that's the real issue, and that issue is not going to get fixed until you pretty much remove those people from power. But then the cycle will just repeat, because as soon as you put different people, we are dealing with fallen human beings. And so whenever you have fallen human beings in large groups, they act according to their own interests of their groups. So they act selfishly for the benefit of the group. And then that's where all these problems come from, because these people are acting selfishly and they're not really acting in the interest of the American people. Now, immigration may or may not be a part of that interest, the converged interests of these groups. But I think in certain cases, immigration can be a bad thing, especially when you hear globalist leaders such as Klaus Schwab, people like George Soros, and other people that follow along with that crowd, Bill Gates. And so they're in favor of the globalization of groups of people where there's no one nation belonging to a particular race of people, but rather all countries, all nations have mixed people. And then what goes along with that is this kind of woke, liberal, progressive idea that the white man is the most evil thing on the planet, and that the root of all evil is white people, specifically white men. And so you have this tearing down of white people, and almost to the point of like they want to erase white people and their influence. And you see this in the liberal schools, universities, even at the lower levels of education with elementary schools and kindergarten, things like that. There's been a big push against white people. So that's certainly a problem. Obviously, when you have a systemized attack against any group of people, that's going to cause a problem, and it comes from a place of hatred and evil. But again, the issue is a lot more complicated. If you want to remove that thing from the United States and from other places in Europe where it's also showing up, if you want to get rid of that hatred against white men, it's like this ball of yarn that you can't really cut off one thread from the ball of yarn. You got to remove the whole ball of yarn, which is pretty much an impossible task, because this ball of yarn, this ball of problems, it's so stuck together that you can't really take one part out without damaging another part. I guess a better picture would be a spider's web. You want to remove one thread from the spider's web without tearing down the entire web. Otherwise, we would all fall along with the web. So that's pretty much the problem as I see it. I think the big picture is that all these issues are kind of tied together in some form or another. And if you really want to target one of the issues, you're going to have to risk damaging yourself, basically, in the long run. And the actual solution to these kinds of problems is not more immigrants, and it's not to put white people back in their place. Rather, the solution is to Christianize the nation, which is kind of a hard thing to say, because that's not going to happen this side of heaven. There will never be a sort of perfect place where people act according to Christian ethics and Christian law. It's not really a place that can exist in the world. The closest thing you can get to is attending church. That's the closest you're going to get to heaven on this side of heaven. And that's kind of the solution to the problem, is that if everyone just went to church, everyone became a Christian, that's kind of the simple answer. We wouldn't have these problems, we wouldn't have these issues. And especially under a Christian paradigm, people are more likely to work and have children, so that solves that problem. But again, people don't want to admit that, and even people who pretend to be Christian conservatives, Christian MAGA, Trump supporters, they say they're Christians, but what they really mean is they want that traditional aspect of Christianity and not, they want the American traditional Christianity rather than an actual biblical Christianity. I think actual, true Christian, biblical Christianity is something that these people are actually afraid of. They don't want to give up their fleshly comforts. They don't want to give up their sinful habits. And especially concerning this younger generation and the preceding generation, or the generation that will come after Generation Z, the generation that's growing up now, the future is pretty bleak in regards to some of the data that you'll see in statistics on Gen Z and Generation Alpha, and even the generation after that. And it's really not a good outlook for the future, because again, it's going to get more anti-Christian, more anti-God the further and further we go down the timeline here. And that's not going to be good for any person, unbeliever or believer. I mean, when a nation is most removed from God and Christian ethics is when a nation crumbles and disassembles itself and becomes a bad place. Think about all the countries and nations that succumbed to communism, and they were very much against God, against Christianity, and those are some of the worst places you could be alive in. But regardless, we know who's in control. We know who's the victor of this battle. It is, of course, Jesus Christ. And if you are a believer, if you are a Christian, you are on the winning side, regardless of how bleak it may seem on this side of heaven. And just be prepared. It might get worse. In history, there have been times when it's a lot worse than it is now. So we know how bad it can get by looking at history and how bad it's been. Again, the church still here. The one thing that makes us hopeful for the future, that no matter what, the church will not be eradicated from the earth. And so if you are a part of the church, again, you are on the winning side. Now, it's not to say that you can't ignore these sort of issues that we're facing with. I mean, we're always going to deal with these issues regardless. And this takes us to the last two articles. 1 dead, 7 injured in a Tesla Cybertruck explosion that was near the Vegas Trump Hotel. That's all you need to know is in the headline. I don't think much is known about the guy who did it, but I'm not sure. And then again, a terrorist attack, 10 dead, 30 injured after car crashes into Bourbon Street, New Orleans. And another sort of tragic event that happened. Well, not sort of. It is a tragic event. They're saying it's a terrorist attack. And I believe the person was Islamic or Muslim. And so basically these two events highlight kind of this is what the world is like. This is what the United States is like at this point. There's still evil that we have to battle against. There's still things that we have to pray for. And so in regards to this issue about immigration and H-1B visas, it's not really worth, losing your head over. In terms of being a Christian, you got to look at the big picture. Christ is ruling on his throne, and we have to basically keep our heads down and keep doing the work that we've been called to do, first and foremost, to glorify God through our lives and enjoy him. First and foremost, that's our main focus. And of course, that looks different depending on what stage you are in life and what kind of life you have at this point. So it's different for everyone. And that's all I have to say. I think it's pretty simple. I think people overcomplicate these kind of issues. But again, nothing's really going to change if you fix one little piece of it without taking into account the entire whole of the problem. And it's basically these groups of people, these bureaucrats in the government and in other world governments, and these globalist leaders that want to take the world, put everybody in the world on the same page, which is not feasible, it's not logical, it's not going to work, especially because they want the entire world to be under a dictatorship, essentially. And so it's these groups that have converged interests within the U.S. government, within other governments in the world. And until that is disassembled, immigration is not going to fix these issues. No immigration is not going to fix these issues because these problems are going on at a deeper level. And it's really binded to the fabric of American society right now. So I guess you could say it is a sort of distraction. Best thing to do when you're distracted is to not be distracted. That's everything I wanted to say about this topic. Hope you're doing well. We did start a new year. We're now in the year of 2025. Although it doesn't really feel that way, but that's just the way it is. And I will see you in the next episode.